Welcome to this episode of the Brush and Soap and Blade Podcast, where we look forward to shaving every day. Welcome to episode 56 of the podcast. My name is Rick DeWeese. I'll be your host this week. This week we've got a bunch of letters to go over. I tell you about part 2 of my experience with the inexpensive bronzer brush that I talked about last week. A quick review on the Erasmic shave stick that I used when I went camping this week. Don't really have a razor of the week, but I do talk about a razor blade, and that's the Derby Extra Blade. And then we pipe on board some soaps to review from none other than the soap commander himself. So we'll talk about the offerings for over there at the Soap Commander and tell you all about that. And finally, it's been a stressful week, and I have found solace in my shaving routine. So I tell you all about that. So thanks for listening. Thanks for coming on board this week, and let's get on with this show. I got a few notes from Dennis. So Dennis writes, I'm a brand new DE shaveaholic. In fact, I just finished my 4th ever wet shave. I must admit, I'm very much hooked now. I recently converted from the grips of the dreaded multi-blade monster and cans of goo. I first read about our very fast-growing art on the internet. It all made so much sense, how our granddads had it right with taking the time and feeling good about shaving, about how much better for our skin single blades are, much better than multi-blades, etc., etc. Anyway, I decided to try bidding on a fairly inexpensive DE safety razor. Bela, I think, and won it for a mere $7. Also won a pack of Derby blades. I purchased a Vander Hagen starter kit containing soap, a nice mug, a brush, and a stand. Not top-notch stuff, but I didn't want to go overboard, not knowing if I'd like wet shaving. Anyways, now I'm in. Hook, line, and sinker. I recently received from a friend 3 Gillette razors, a super speed adjustable, a super speed red tip, and a flare tip. All for the great price of free. And for your information, I also crammed in your first 39 episodes. Now I can't wait for the morning so I can shave. Never thought I'd say that. Well, keep up the great work. I follow you on Twitter now and read everything I can about wet shaving. Oh, one thing. Where do I find these forums you mentioned where you can buy and sell shaving items? Thanks again, Rick. P.S. I'm 52 years old, heavy equipment operator in the coal fields of northeastern Pennsylvania. Also a part-time Zamboni driver for our local AHL team, so I know a little bit about sharp blades. Well, I wrote Dennis back and gave him some advice on some of the forums and told him that probably one of the places that I would check out would be the buy and sell groups over on Facebook. And he wrote me back and he said, thanks for the reply. Go Penguins. He said he's not a Facebook user, so I'll have to look elsewhere for any wheeling and dealing. I was wondering if you've ever tried or heard of using different oils to scent unscented soaps for shaving. There are several shops near me that sell these oils. Just curious. He says he's also waiting on some eBay items, shave soap, sticks, and a loom block, and a variety of blades. And he went on and said, keep up the great work listening to episodes 41 through 45 today. And so, quite honestly, I have not ever thought about using scented oils for unscented soaps. And partly because I don't know if even a drop of scented oil would overpower the amount of soap that I would be essentially using to make a lather with in a bowl, because most of the time I bowl lather. And so I've never really thought about it. I suppose you could water it down or oil it down, as it were, and do the same thing. But no, I never have thought about it. It's not a bad idea, especially if you wanted to experiment a little bit and find out just, what was available and what was out there, and new smells and new combinations, and maybe come up with something that a soap maker has not created. So, yeah, there was. That's not a bad idea, especially if you can get the oils relatively inexpensive. However, I do know, or at least I've heard, that some of the really nice oils can be, well, just a little bit pricey. And for the amount of coin that you would probably put out with those oils, you could get some really, really nice artisan soaps. At least if the prices that I've heard about for oils are accurate. Anyhow, he then went on and he said, "Thanks for keeping on with the podcasts. I finished all the ones to date. I listen on my Android smartphone. I listen on my Android smartphone at work using the Podkicker app. Though had to switch to Beyond Pod app for the last 4. Guessing had to do with your server. Anyway, have a question. I was putting an order in on Amazon for the Samog 1305, and I came across a DE that had great reviews. Have you ever heard of a Utopia Care long-handled razor? It piqued my interest for sure." Well, no, I looked that one up, and I had not heard of that one. So I don't know anything about it. And one thing that everybody needs to know for the podcast apps and things, I've gotten some feedback from folks with some of the different podcast apps. I know it happens on the Apple Podcast app. When my old podcast service provider, my podcast host, they broke the feed to iTunes. And when they broke the feed to iTunes, they broke the feed to, well, just about everybody else too. So what ended up happening is everybody was able to get through up to, I believe, episode 47, and then it just stopped. No new episodes. Now, just to be blunt about it, I fired them. I got a new host. And since then, I am now up in the, I don't know what episode this is when I'm sitting here talking about it. 55, 56, something like that. But I have been doing it with a new host. Now, the problem is that the only way to make sure that your podcast app, at least within Apple iTunes, the only way to make sure that your podcast app is getting the correct feed, and again, this is what I did on my Apple podcast app, and it seems to work on other podcast apps as well, is what I ended up doing is I ended up unsubscribing and deleting my my own show out of my podcast app. I then went and resubscribed. When I resubscribed, it came back with the new feed, and everything was fine. Now, the one app that doesn't seem to have been affected and seems to have made the switch, maybe not seamlessly, but with a lot less trouble, is Stitcher. But everybody else, there seems to have been a pretty good-sized hiccup, both when my old podcast host broke the feed and then when I changed. So I apologize for that, but my new podcast host seems to be doing an absolutely excellent job, which is good. Anyhow, I just wanted to get that out there. And Dennis, thank you very much for the letter. I also got a letter from Arnaldo. He writes, "First of all, awesome podcast. The reason for this email is when I started to listen to your podcast, I heard that you bowl lather in a modified salsa bowl. I went to your website and I saw the picture of 2 salsa bowls, one 50 grit and the other one 80. In your honest opinion, which one does a better lather job? Because I want to do the same. I tried to download the episode 43, which is the one you're talking about this, but I can't find it on iTunes. Also, do you prefer face or bowl lathering? Thanks for all the knowledge. I'm learning a lot from you. Have a good one." And Arnaldo. Okay, so 50 grit or 80 grit. Now, when I modify my salsa bowls, basically what I do is I just go to Walmart and get regular, run-of-the-mill salsa bowls. In fact, I have a plethora of black ones. And what I do is I went down to the hardware store, and I got the meanest, nastiest sandpaper that I could get. And they had some 80 grit and they had some 50 grit. And what I found is that it really doesn't make much of a difference. The 80 grit works just as well as the 50 grit. Now, the other thing that's interesting is that when you first modify your salsa bowl, and by that all you're doing is sanding the inside to put some ridges on it, what I found is that initially, anyhow, the ridges tend to make things foam, and it takes a couple lathers in that bowl to kind of knock them down to a dull roar so that it enhances the lather instead of just foaming up like a soap. So that's something that's was a little curious and unexpected. I'll probably do a YouTube video on modifying salsa bowls, just because it doesn't really come across well just in audio. You kind of need to see it. It's not hard. I mean, basically all you're doing is just, sanding the inside of the salsa bowl. It's really not a lot more difficult than that. And so that would be what I would say to that question. And thank you very much for the letter. Joe wrote me a quick letter from Homesteadonomics. He said, welcome to YouTube. And he suggested some videos, how I get ready for a podcast, some tutorials on axe or knife sharpening, razor honing, which I'm really not good at. But I've got some stuff that I'll talk about in a minute that maybe I'll get a little bit better at it. He also said, maybe a rendition of somebody else's Ice Bucket Challenge. No, I am not going to top that. That was an excellent job, and there's no way I'd even come close to touching that one. But anyhow, Joe, thanks for the comment. I got another letter from Mark. Several years ago, a book was published on the effects that the Internet and trade agreements will have on the world. The World is Flat says that the Internet now has us competing with the whole world, but also we have the whole world as a market. The Gillette Corporation stopped selling double-edged blades and razors in the United States and pushed shaving gadgets, which they market until the patent expires, and then they sell a new patented gadget. They then did the same thing in Europe. When the Berlin Wall fell, they wanted to control the shaving market in the former communist bloc. They bought up several razor companies and consolidated them in St. Petersburg, Russia. There they make some of the best double-edged blades in the world. But go on the Gillette website for the United States and Europe, and they will sell you all their gadgets and cartridge blades for their gadgets, but no double-edged blades are mentioned. Unfortunately, for Gillette, the world is flat. We can buy Gillette 7 o'clock blades and use them in the old Gillette Super Speed. We can purchase on the Internet many of the double-edged razor blades that Gillette makes in Russia cheaper than their gadget razor blades. Once more, Japan, Pakistan, India, England, and Germany make some excellent razors. But there is a demand for Gillette razors, not the multi-blade gizmos, but the vintage ones. Now Gillette finds itself in a strange position. They want people to buy their products, but they want to prevent some people from buying some of their products. They also want others to buy some of their products, but not all people. In the Far East, the demand for vintage Gillette razors is so high, they are licensing the name of Gillette to a cheap razor that even has the likeness of King Gillette. What madness. Gillette double-edged blades are being made, but Gillette doesn't want Americans to buy them. A Gillette double-edged razor is still being made, but Gillette doesn't want us to buy that either. Why? Because less people will spend more money on lousy razors. Can you imagine a corporate meeting at Gillette? Those double-edged blades we make. Is it true people are buying them? We have to put a stop to that. Those Gillette razors we make, don't tell me they're buying those too. If they keep buying the stuff we're making, how are we going to keep making money? Now, after this rant, you may think someone blew my pilot light out. You may tell me I should go get a checkup from the neck up. But explain to me why I can't buy a Schick injector blades on the Schick website. I guess I'm not sure if the world is flat or just plain nuts. Love the podcast, Mark. Yeah, and honestly, it's all about the money. It's all about how much profit can a company make. And if I can make a penny on a double-edged razor blades, but I can make a dime on a cartridge razor, well, then what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to sell a whole lot more cartridge razors, and I'm just not even going to mention the double edge. Now, if I have another market that we haven't moved to the cartridge razors yet, and they're still on the double edge, well, I can still make a penny off of them. And quite honestly, that may be all they can afford anyhow, so that's as far as I'm going to get with them. So it's really an interesting situation, especially when you throw in the fact that the cartridge razors, at least in my opinion, don't give a better shave. They shave, but they don't give a better shave. And so when you throw all that together, it's really about moving the pieces on the puzzle and putting the things in place that will allow the company to make as much money as it possibly can from as many people as it possibly can, etc., etc., etc. And then you throw in the marketing and the hype and everything else to keep that game afloat. And, well, luckily for us, we do, in fact, have the internet, and the world is, in fact, flat, and we do have the whole world as our market in which to buy our products, at least the ones we prefer, which is, in fact, the ones that Gillette doesn't want us to buy. You're absolutely right, because, well, they make less money. Now, the good news is right now we are a relatively small contingent, but I would bet that what would happen is that over time, if we get larger and larger, they will start phasing out the double-edged blades and push the cartridge blades into the markets that right now don't have them because, well, they can't afford the price point that Gillette is wanting to sell them for. So, if they can kill a product to maintain a profit, there are many companies out there that have done just that. Now, it's happened with Schick, it's happened with Gillette, it's happened with a lot of different companies, but we'll stick with wet shaving right now. Anyhow, I hope that doesn't come to pass, but if it does, it wouldn't surprise me. So, thank you very much for the letter. So, Mark wrote me an addition to his World is Flat letter. For years, India has made some fine double-edged razors, but the name of Gillette and the English blades from Wilkinson's sword have been sought after. Wilkinson's sword, which merged with Schick, is no longer making blades in England. Gillette, who had bought out an Indian blade maker, began making blades in India. Shavers in India who valued the name Gillette for their razors and Wilkinson's sword for their blades were presented with a marketing marriage of convenience. That's right. These are blades made in India that have no connection with the Wilkinson sword blades that used to be made in England, nor the ones made now in Germany. They also have no connection to the old Gillette razors, but they carry the name of both. Both companies are stamping their feet that people in the United States can now buy them from Maggard Razors. Wait a while, we will buy a soda called Pepsi Coca-Cola Royal Crown, but only over the internet. Plastic Salsa Bowl regards, Mark. And what Mark sent me was a picture of a box of razors that says Gillette Wilkinson sword on the box. Both names on the box. And apparently they're made in India. Probably much to the chagrin of the folks in India who are thinking they're buying true Wilkinson sword blades. And, well, they're not. Anyhow, it is an interesting marketing conundrum on how the machinations of these big companies are, well, from the outside anyhow, getting a little out of hand. But it does make for a humorous letter. Thank you very much. I also got a letter from Michael. Rick, I wanted to say again, thank you for doing the podcast. I love every episode. I especially love all the time you take to read and answer letters. Now, I'm sure you get quite a few and only read the ones you feel are necessary for that week. But again, I love how much time you actually take to read and answer them. I believe one episode where you took almost 30 minutes. It was pretty cool. A few episodes ago, you were talking about shaving brushes and said you would like to see some pictures of other people's brushes. So attached to this email are pictures of the brushes I have acquired since I started DE shaving back in April. From left to right, in the larger image are Vanderhagen Starter Kit Boar Brush, the new Bigger Bambino Boar Brush, Omega Shaving Set Boar Brush, Samog Boar Brush, a Scally 100% Pure Badger, and an Art of Shaving 100% Pure Badger Travel Brush. Now, I believe that the Badger brushes would be my favorites, but to tell the truth, the Bambino Boar Brush is my absolute favor. But to tell the truth, the Bambino Boar Brush is my absolute favorite. It is tiny, and unfortunately the plastic on the handle isn't finished well. You can feel the seam, but it feels great in the hand, and the bristles feel soft on my face. The pictures with the two brushes are my two favorite, and aside from the Vanderhagen, are the cheapest brushes. Once broken in, they are softer than my Badgers and my Samog. Also, attached are pictures of my latest find. Almost 3 months ago, I left my name and number with an antique store and asked them to call me if they got any safety razors. She called me and sent me pictures of this fat boy. I haven't had a chance to shave with it yet, but I will clean it up and give it a go soon enough. Thanks for all you do, Michael. So he did send some pictures, and I'll go ahead and throw those up on the blog. And he's got a nice picture. I mean, it's a cased fat boy. That's a good-looking razor. And the brushes are nice, too. Now, I have to open this one up. He's got the ones for the Omega, and those are really nice. And he really likes that one. So that's interesting. The one that you're feeling the seam on, I had that problem with my Vanderhagen as well. And what I did is I took a very sharp knife and scraped the seam away. You know, it's just plastic, and you can, as long as you're careful with it, very gently scrape the seam down and then take a little bit of sandpaper and get rid of the seam. Now, the reason that I did it on mine is because the way I held it, I had a tendency to hold it right at the seam for some reason. I don't know why, but it irritated my finger. And so I said, well, I can fix this. And so like I said, I took a knife and kind of scraped it away, and then I took a piece of sandpaper and kind of buffed it out. And it's a good brush. It does a great job. And more importantly, I'm very happy that you have some brushes that you are very satisfied with, and I'm glad you found that razor because, an old vintage razor, which I am, very, I love old vintage razors, and it's nice to see one that has found its way to a good home where it will be well taken care of, protected, used, and appreciated. So anyhow, Michael, thank you very much for the letter. I also got a comment that I have to comment on because it's just kind of funny. Nath wrote me that he left a comment for me that I have a tendency to use a certain word in my podcasts, and I used to go back and edit them out, and, well, that just got old, and so I stopped doing it. And even though I think about it, even though I want to not use it, I do. And he wrote me a comment that, well, kind of poking fun at me, and that's cool. I don't mind at all. I thought it was a great comment because I too have noticed it, thought about it, tried to stop, and it's just, I I can't. Anyhow, Nath, thank you very much for the comment. So last week I was talking to you about the new brush that I was playing with, the little bronzer brush that I had picked up at Target, and it's a kabuki style brush. That's the fibers on it, and but it's in the package as a bronzer brush. Now it had a handle on it, which was nice because the other ones were just a little short, stubby thing, and it didn't look like they would be very easy to hold on to. And so I wanted to buy the one with the handle. And the one with the handle was only $1 more, so I went ahead and picked it up. Now, as I reported last week, it is a synthetic brush, and it is very, very soft and very dense, and so far I've really liked it. It does a great job face lathering, holds a lot of lather, and at the end of the day, it was a whopping $7.99, which, kind of excites the frugal person in me. And, with that in a salsa bowl, I mean, you're not even up to $10 yet. So you have an opportunity to use some great soaps. You spend the extra money on some great artisan soaps and go down to the antique store and get a vintage razor, preferably a Gillette just because I like them, and have yourself a very, very nice razor kit for not a whole lot of money. Now, I was going on a camping trip, and one of the reasons that I bought this is that I wanted to use it as my travel brush. I like the idea of a synthetic travel brush because you can't always get these things perfectly dry. And, if I happen to throw it in a suitcase or whatever, and it was slightly damp, I didn't want to have to worry about the brush being damaged. Okay. So I took this little guy and I threw it in my, I have one of the Simpson little tubes that the travel brushes come in that you can also put shaving soaps in, but it's I think I got it for like $5 or whatever, but it's a little Simpson white tube. And I picked that up and I dropped my brush in it, and the brush overhung by a bit. And so I went ahead and marked it and took it out to the garage, to the bandsaw, and whacked a chunk off the handle. So my total handle length at this point is just a little shy of 2 inches, and the total length of this thing is just, about 3 1/4 maybe? I call it 3 1/2 all in all, which fits perfectly inside this little travel tube. I mean, when you put it in the travel tube, I'm shaking it right now, and there's nothing. There's no movement. It's like right up against the end. You can't do anything. Now, if I shake it side to side, you can hear the handle wobbling around on the inside, but, just running it back and forth, there's hardly any movement, which means, well, I got lucky and I got it right, because I wanted to have as much handle and basically shove it in there as tightly as I possibly could. So I hacked this thing off, and to my amazement, when I first picked it up, there was this plastic seam on here and the gray plastic, and I thought, okay, this is going to be a plastic handle. It may be hollow, although it does have a little heft to it. It's I'm going to have to be careful with it because of how it cuts, blah, blah, blah. As it turned out, this thing has a hardwood handle. It was a chunk of dowel in there. So I whacked it off and sanded down the edges just a little bit. Now the nice thing is that it will sit upright on the counter. So after I get done using it, I can sit it upright on the counter and it just stays there. Before I couldn't do that because it was rounded. So this is much nicer from that regard, and it fits in my travel tube. Now the other thing that's interesting about this is that the gray plastic paint is, and I think it's a paint, but it's thick. It's almost like a plastic shrink wrap, I guess, but it has split and it's coming off and it's peeling, and I keep peeling it off because I want to get down to the wood. The heck with this plastic stuff. I want to get down to the wood. It's probably not really nice wood, but I can at least sand it up and make it look like something, throw a little oil on it or something. But it's been pretty nice. So I went on a camping trip and I used it, and I ran into something that I hadn't considered previously. My travel kit, the bomb as I call it, where I have my soaps and I have my dog dish, my silicone dog dish that folds down, and I have a couple of aftershaves and some blades and a mirror, and my whole kit is in this thing. And I hadn't considered this previously, but I took this thing out on my camping trip, and I took my razor out, which happens to be a flare tip, a Gillette flare tip, which I really, really like, by the way. It's a very nice razor. And opened it up, and lo and behold, the dang thing was starting to rust. What I'm not taking into account, and what I didn't realize, was that this box that I have, which is I want to say it's an outdoor watertight box that has a very nice seal on it, and that's the problem. It has a very nice seal on it. And when I brought it home after my last trip, I left it sealed up. And the brush was not in there. I did not have a brush in there, but I did leave my soaps in there. And the natural moisture that was in the soaps, I suspect, basically created a moist environment, or a semi-moist environment, some humidity anyhow, inside the closed spaces of that sealed container. Now, I don't think I'll have this problem. I've never seen this problem in an Altoids tin because, well, the things don't close up that tight. There's always a little bit of leakage that gets in around them, and so I don't think that's a problem. But on this sealed tin, or a sealed plastic case, it is something to watch out for. So now when I'm not using it, I have it stored with the lid, cracked open, and, the little tabs in there kind of folded over so you can't shut it all the way, so that it gets some air in there. So far, the brush has done very, very nicely. I don't worry about it being a little bit damp when I put it in there. It still does a very nice job. It hasn't fallen apart yet. It's not coming loose or anything like that. And so I have enjoyed that aspect of it. And again, for $7.99, it's a good deal. And it's a nice little synthetic brush with a good bit of backbone. Now, I continue to play around with it, quite honestly, just to see how long it will last and if it will fall apart. And when it does, not if it does, but when it does, then I will also tell you and investigate, how I put it back together, if it is even possible. If the knot just falls out, but it's still it's still solid where the knot is being held, down at the base, then it could just be epoxied in, and all is right with the world, and I'll keep on trucking. If, on the other hand, the thing splits into several pieces or something like that, I'll let you know, and let you know that it can't be salvaged. But I am looking forward to continuing to use this thing. I was using it for most of this week, as well as my camping trip over the weekend. And I did switch to my Plisson just to give kind of a different feel. My Plisson feels just a little softer. And I think the reason that it feels softer is because the bristles, the fibers are longer, and it splays a little bit better just because of that length. But the softness, the tip softness of these brushes is very, very similar, which I found very nice. And for testing out soaps and doing things like that, face lathering or whatever, it does a very, very nice job. So that is my my adventure so far with my little bronzer brush for a whopping $8. Quite honestly, at this point, if I had the choice between spending $8 on this thing and whacking off the handle with a saw, or even leaving it the way it was and just, drying it sideways, or spending, $10, $15 on a Van der Hagen, I think I'd get the bronzer brush. I think it's a nicer brush than my Van der Hagen. But that's where I'm at with that. Now, Would I trade it? Would I give that up for my Samog? I don't know. My Samog has some advantages. It's soft, nowhere near as soft as this bronzer brush is. It's got a little bit more backbone, and it feels, I mean, it's just, there's something about it. It's a wonderful brush, in my opinion, but it's not just the softness. It's the backbone and the feel and the handle shape, and it's just, for me, and again, the brushes are very personal. For me, it is probably one of my favorite brushes, although the Polisson is right up there too. But I don't think I'd trade my a Samog 1305. Now the 830, well, for me it's the handle. I love the knot. It's the handle for me. But there you go. Anyhow, that's my report on my inexpensive, frugal bronzer brush experience so far. One of the other things that I did this weekend on my camping trip was I used an Erasmic shave stick. Now, I had used the cream before in a tube, and I really, really enjoyed that stuff. It was very, very nice. So I had an opportunity to buy one of these shave sticks. I bought it off of a guy on Facebook who was selling it. And it's a, little 50-gram stick, and it said it had a holder in it. Now, the interesting thing is that when I took it out of the box, the holder came right out, and so I just used it without the holder. But the thing is that the way that the holder works is it's a piece of red plastic that has 4 spikes in it, and some pieces to kind of give a grip on the sides of the stick as well. What I noticed is the stick had dried out and, in fact, was cracked and broken where those spikes go in. So, in fact, instead of being a stick that was, solid and everything else, it was busted. So I ended up bowl lathering the first day with it, and it did a nice job. It wasn't a great lather. It was kind of out in the field, and it wasn't a great lather. Now, my scouts that I was camping with thought the smell was great, but I was a little disappointed in the performance, mainly because my bowl lathering probably didn't do a good enough job of getting enough soap on my face. But there you go. That's how you learn, right? Now, when I got back home, I used it a couple more times and used it in the traditional shaving stick style, wet my face and rubbed the soap stick on my face and then lathered. And I was using my little bronzer brush, and it did a very nice job. Of course, the bronzer brush, I probably should have shaken a little bit more water out of it because it is very dense and it holds a lot of water in. So, before the lather kind of stiffened up, it was kind of a sloppy mess, dripping all over the place and things. But once we got through that, the performance of this little shave stick was really pretty nice. And of course, it's got that wonderful Erasmic smell that I have always enjoyed. And so all in all, it was a nice shave. Now, the Erasmic stick, in fact, Erasmic is made in the UK, and it's a tallow-based stick, and one of the things that I've read about it is that people don't like the lather. I think the biggest problem is they're not using enough product. That was the problem that I had out in the field, and I just wasn't getting enough soap on. It made a decent lather, but it just wasn't thick enough. And again, it goes back to what I was saying last week. It was reminiscent of kind of the wetter, if you will, lathers that I get when I use 2 teaspoons of water versus the slightly stiffer, thicker, and better at this point, I'm thinking, lathers that I get when I only use, 1 teaspoon of water. So it's an interesting thing, Again, up until last week, I really hadn't thought about that. But as I play more and more with water content, what I find is that for myself, anyhow, at this point, I'm using a little bit less. Now, the shave stick itself, it was, you can buy it over at West Coast Shaving for about $2.50. which doesn't seem to be a bad price for a little shave stick. Some people don't like the smell. I kind of like the smell, and so did my scouts when they sniffed the salsa bowl. So from that aspect, I don't think you can go wrong. At least myself personally, $250 is not a big amount of money in case you don't like it. You can always trade it or give it away. But it's a nice soap. Now, at least for me, it seemed to work well, especially, again, when I used a little bit more soap and a little bit less water. So the razor this week is the Derby Extra. It's a double-edged razor made in Turkey. They're chromium ceramic, tungsten and platinum plated, if they can get all that on the blade, I guess. But that's the way they're advertised. So they're in the green Derby container. And I have been using this in my Merkur 37C slant. And one thing that I've noticed is that my feather blades in the slant seem to be, well, they're still great. I mean, they're still good, but they seem almost like, well, they're a bit much. They turn a razor that is a relatively mild razor into something that, well, is just a little bit more aggressive. Now, my feathers work great in my just regular double-edged razors, whether it be a vintage Gillette or, one of my other new ones. They work great in that. But in the slant, they just seem to be, well, a bit much. And what I find, or what I've found so far, is that some of the blades that in the regular razors I would think, they're okay, but they're nothing to write home about, perform beautifully in the slant. It's almost like the slant makes the blade just a little bit more aggressive, and if you start off with a blade that, well, is a little bit aggressive to begin with, it just becomes a bit too much. But in the case of the Derby, it has so far done a very, very nice job and given some excellent shaves in the slant. Now, I haven't tried it in anything else because, again, I've been very happy with it in the slant razor. Now, the blades themselves aren't very expensive. You can buy 100 of them for $20, which you're talking 20 cents a blade. Not a bad price. And at least for me, again, in my slant razor, they seem to be very, very nice. Haven't had any nicks, haven't had any cuts, no irritation, no issues, and it's been a nice blade. I've really kind of enjoyed it. Now, do I think or suspect that it's anything to write home about? No. But at the same time, again, I look at maybe the miracle of the slant to take a medium blade and make it almost a superior blade, or just shy of, just because the fact that you're, putting it in a slant. So if anybody else out there has any experience with slant razors and has had that experience where, an aggressive blade or a blade that is really, really nice in a regular, like a feather, for example, is just, a bit too much in a slant, and a blade that would be kind of middle of the road, just in a regular razor, just kind of a kick butt little blade in a slant. It's just a curiosity that I've run into, that I've noticed in the last couple of blades that I've tried in my slant, and I'm wondering if you had it too. Give me a call, write me an email, let me know. The soap, other than the one that I took on my camping trip, that I've been using all week, in fact, a little bit longer than a week, it's special. Let's set the mood. Now that I got your attention and all hands are on deck here, let's go ahead and talk about these soaps. I ordered a sample pack from none other than the Soap Commander. And I was so thrilled with this collection of soaps that the day that I got it in this nice little priority mail flat pack, as a matter of fact, in the mailbox, I had 9 wonderful samples of soap. And so I actually spent the evening, that first evening, with a gleam in my eye, lathering said soaps, and just trying to find out, okay, first off, how does everything go together? How do they lather? And, what's the sense? Now, the Soap Commander has a bunch of different scents and smells, so I wanted to try all of them. And the samples, again, I'm a big fan of samples. The samples gave me the opportunity to do that. Okay, first off, I was not disappointed in any of these soaps when it came to lathering. The lathering of these things was, well, wonderful. It truly was. It was thick. It was rich. When I've used it, it has performed well. The soap is, by any stretch of the imagination, wonderful. It truly is. So, okay, now, since all of these scents use the same soap base, it really comes down to a preference of, well, what smell do you like? Well, that's interesting, because there is a wide variety of smells to deal with here. Now, during that night, I must admit that what ended up happening is I picked out the smells that I really, really enjoyed. I mean, I lined them up, and it's like, yeah, I like this one, I like this one, I really like this one. And so I lined them up in order, and what I found is that, and I probably shouldn't have done this, because it really just clouded my mind for, well, the rest of the time that I was using these soaps, is that the first 4 or 5 were kind of standouts, and then the other ones kind of just, well, they were in there somewhere, but it was really hard to distinguish, and quite honestly, my nose was just, well, confused. And the confusion really didn't get much, it didn't get any better as I was using them. I guess I had already kind of put myself into this mindset that, well, these were the ones that I liked, and the other ones, well, they were just kind of there. Anyhow, let me tell you about my experience with these. Okay, the first, and probably my favorite, is Vision. Now, Vision has a whole bunch of stuff going on. And if you hear this crinkly noise, these samples come in these wonderful little wax paper envelopes that, help keep them out of trouble. And, okay, so Vision. Vision is a wonderful fragrance. It's got all kinds of stuff going on. Now, the description on the web says it's got citrus, blackcurrant, pineapple, honeydew, muguet, and water lily upon a base of vetiver and mulberry. Okay, maybe. But then they add this peppermint essential oil in there, and it just smells marvelous. However, it's interesting, and this is something that I really, really enjoyed. I was sitting there lathering this stuff, and I was thinking, this reminds me of something. What does this remind me of? And it dawned on me finally, because it was in my head. I was actually going back to my Navy days, to boot camp. And what it dawned on me is that the guys, as I recall, in boot camp, there was this a certain soap that was called Irish Spring that had this peppermint thing going on. And this was reminiscent of that. It's kind of like a peppermint Irish Spring. And quite honestly, I hadn't thought about that smell, and I hadn't thought about boot camp and those times, well, in years. That right there was worth the price of admission. I mean, the scent memory that brought back was just explicit and, quite honestly, wonderful. So thank you for that, because I really enjoyed that. It was a trip down the smell memory lane, if you will. Anyhow, this is by far my absolute favorite smell. It was it's wonderful. It's fresh. It's lively. It wakes you up. It's not, one of these things that you put on and go, okay. There's no menthol in it, but it still has a kick. It has a nose kick to it that it doesn't have the feel of menthol, but it almost has the nose of menthol, but it doesn't. It's peppermint, and it was really, really nice. I really enjoyed it. Okay, the next one. The next one is Confidence. And that one I also really enjoyed. And let me get this thing out here. This one has a much different smell. I mean, it's like a jasmine lavender kind of musky, woody smell to it. It's wonderful. It's just wonderful. It really is. It's much different than Vision. It's it's good. I really enjoy this one. This one is the kind of and it's really nice because it's fall right now too, and so that kind of woody, musky smell with a little hint of floral in it just really kind of stands out and kind of sets a mood, if you will. And so that one I really enjoyed. That's my number 2. Okay, that's good stuff. Now, number 3. Number 3 is Passion. And let me whip Passion out here. Passion also has, it's different. They're all kind of different. This one is kind of a cinnamon, sandalwood, cedar, patchouli thing going on. It's nice. It's not as cinnamony as I had one. It was, and I can't remember who made it, but it was a real cinnamony soap. And in fact, it had so much cinnamon in it actually burned. This does not burn, okay? And in fact, the other nice thing about this is it's got just a hint of sandalwood in it. And previously I had said that I have kind of a sensitivity to sandalwood. There's not that much in there, so I had no sensitivity at all, well, with any of these soaps, but especially that one, which really made me happy because the kind of a cinnamon and sandalwood with, kind of the floral patchouli thing really made it nice. But it's good. It's earthy. But it's not a dirt smell. It's more of a, it's almost like a forest, bit of sandalwood and a forest kind of thing going on. It's great. I really, that's my next one on the list. Okay. Now you may think I'm crazy for this. You really may think, yeah, he has lost his absolute mind. But the next one that I have on my list is, something that you might not expect. It's called Love. It is a rose. And it is it's a rose scent. Now, the reason that I like this one is, again, a scent memory. This smells exactly like the rose perfumes and soaps that my grandmother had. And I have fond memories of being in her house and being in, going to the bathroom or whatever and seeing and smelling those, smelling them on her. This one, it's for that reason alone, I mean, I like roses, don't get me wrong, but this one is so just perfect of the 1960s, late 60s, early 70s rose perfumes and things that my grandmother had. Again, a trip down a scent memory lane, and thank you again, Soap Commander, for giving me that opportunity as well. A fantastic journey. Just beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So, that one brings back special memories. Okay, so that one's number 4. The next one for me, clear my nose out here. It's all good stuff. Don't get me wrong. I love all this stuff. But the next one for me is none other than courage. Now, the thing that's interesting is about this time, my nose starts going south. And it's like, it starts kind of, there's a bit of stuff in it, but it doesn't stand out. It's got just a kind of a hint of peppermint, so it kind of reminds me of the wisdom, or not the wisdom, but the vision. It's got some patchouli, so it's kind of, it reminds me a little bit of the passion. Yeah, it's almost like it starts getting mixed up. And it's not as strong as the other ones. It's good, but it's not as strong. It's a very mild smell. And so this is where it starts getting into it's just kind of, there. Okay, that's good, but, we'll set that aside and, go on to the next one. The next one was wisdom. And wisdom, let me open this one up. Wisdom is good, but wisdom is peppermint and lavender. It's probably more peppermint than anything else. Well, no, it's got lavender in it. It really does. And when you lather it, it jumps out. And that's the other thing about these. They're not, when you lather them, they're not absolute in your face, just slap you around kind of smells. They're very much present, but they're not obnoxious. They're just good. The balance in them is just, the intensity of them is spot on, absolutely spot on. Good stuff. Lavender peppermint. And it's purple too. I mean, how can you not like that? Good stuff. Good stuff. This is one, I'll probably put this one, I put this one a little bit below courage. It's probably more even than anything. It's got more of a smell to it than courage does. Courage to me it's a little bit lighter. It's a little bit more nuanced, if you will. It's not quite as present, maybe is the best way to put it. The next one for me is endurance. And endurance is a spicy scent, and it says a classic spice scent, which kind of gives you the idea that it's, Old Spicy. And it is sort of. It's not far off, but it's not spot on. It's kind of a musky vanilla with a bit of, like, jasmine or something in it. It's, I don't know, it's not bad, but it wasn't, I've got some Old Spice cream, some of the Schulten formula, and I thought this would be, closer. It's not far off, but it's not spot on. The fragrance, there's something just slightly different about it. I also have some, I think it's Windjammer from Mystic Waters, and that's actually closer to Old Spice than this is. Again, this is not far off, but it's not spot on. So if you're a fan of Old Spice type, it's a good fit. If you want an exact fit for Old Spice, it's not quite it. Like I said, I think the Mystic Waters is just a little bit closer. But again, the performance of this stuff is, well, fabulous. Okay. Next, let's see. Next on the list, and the last one of scent quality here. Wait a minute, let me get it out. There we go. Is respect. And respect is just, well, it's kind of a limey, but it almost comes off as kind of a lime pine. It's supposed to be lime and patchouli. It comes off more lime and pine. I mean, it's just that's the way my nose smells it. I put it at the bottom of the list because my nose just went, nah, no. It's nice, but it's lime and something else, and the something else just doesn't, to my nose, just doesn't fit. It's good, but yeah, it's not for me. But that's the nice thing about samples, you know. You don't have to spend, $20 or whatever for a tub of soap just to find out that for your nose it just doesn't quite fit. Now the other one, the last one, which I didn't open, as a matter of fact, I've got it here and I'm opening it for the first time, is none other than Integrity, which has no scent at all. It's just straight Soap Commander soap. So I haven't used that one. I've used all the others. Like I said, the first four, the vision, the confidence, the passion, and the love, for me, are hands down winners. I mean, first off, okay, let's get one thing straight. From a performance standpoint, all of these soaps are winners. Just without a doubt, they're absolute winners. For me, the thing that makes the top four of these soaps for me personally is the scent memories, the trips down scent memory lane that they provide me, and the smell combinations that I personally enjoy. Now, just so you know, I am also going to, probably tomorrow or the next day, take these samples and loan them to the sophomore shaver. I think he has some endurance, and he was interested in some of these others, and I am more than happy to share the wealth, as it were, and introduce him to the other various fragrances, smells, and pleasures of Soap Commander soap. So, for me, the Soap Commander soap is spot on. No problems whatsoever. An excellent soap, an excellent performing soap. Bravo. And I will, and in ending this review, a quick review of the Soap Commander soaps, I will give these soaps the respect they so richly deserve by piping them off the side. So, thank you very much, Soap Commander. You've done a heck of a job here. Keep up the good work. Let me talk for a minute about Solice. The solace of shaving, the absolute joy in a hectic world of just calming down and recentering on something that, well, am I going to say I'm good at it? No. But I'm decent enough that I don't hack and cut myself up. And so I find that I can recenter my life, my experiences into almost a Zen-like moment of shaving. Okay, so why am I bringing this up? All right, this has been, the last couple of weeks have been rather hectic for me, rather stressful, and quite honestly, one of the things that has brought me back recentered and kind of given me a base to work from, believe it or not, and you may think I am absolutely crazy for saying this, but just the sheer fact of shaving in the morning, using traditional techniques, good soaps, and just for a brief instant forgetting all of the stresses and troubles of everything that I have been dealing with, just to concentrate on developing a good lather, prepping, lathering up, shaving, enjoying the experience of shaving, has given me a grounding that has really, really helped. So, you're probably thinking, okay, my God, you're making it sound like you're dying or something. No, I'm not dying. It's been stressful. I have been working with my scouts, preparing camping trips, getting that kicked off. I've got a new senior patrol leader that I'm working with who's doing a marvelous job, as a matter of fact. But it is new, a new organization, new leadership for the scout troop amongst the boys, bringing on new parents who, through no fault of their own, don't know quite how we operate, and so are asking all kinds of questions that they need to ask and they deserve answers for. In the midst of all that, I've got a couple of boys through their Eagle Board of Reviews, and they have made and finished their journey to Eagle Scout. One of them was, in fact, my older son, which is a huge accomplishment and kind of a bittersweet accomplishment because, well, I've been on this journey ever since we started him, he and I together, back when he started Cub Scouts. So, I'm proud of him. I'm proud of the man that he's turned into. But at the same time, it's, kind of sad that the journey's over. I understand we'll have other journeys, but that was a journey that was special, and hopefully he has, better memories than I do. My memories are absolutely fantastic, but just getting him through that process and making sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed so that he can finish up in that part of it. The things that are going on at work, it's the budgetary time of year when everybody's scrambling around trying to figure out what we're going to be doing next year and trying to arrange all that, the meetings and everything else. And, it's been long days and, quite honestly, some sleepless nights. And I have every morning woken up or gotten out of bed, and I have found that I can shave in the morning, forget about everything else, just concentrate on that simple act. And it takes about 10 minutes. And in fact, I get annoyed sometimes when I'm running just a little bit late and I don't have the time to do it right, to do my morning shave the justice that it deserves. Quite honestly, it's almost to the point where if I don't have the time and I'm stressed out like that, I actually resent not having the time. It's almost like I'm being ripped off. But it's a wonderful joy. It really, truly is to know that one simple thing that I do, it's not like brushing my teeth or putting on clothes. I get there's nothing there that centers me. There's nothing there that causes me to pause and to think about nothing else other than what I'm doing. But shaving does. And because of that, I find great solace in it. So I just wanted to stop for a minute and first off, just share that with you. Hopefully you don't have the same kind of troubles or stresses. Hopefully you don't have any stresses. Some stress is good, but not to a great degree. But if you do, hopefully you can find the same measure or even more solace in just the simple job of shaving. And when I was using a can of goo and a disposable razor, I never, ever would have said that. Thank you for listening. Hope you've enjoyed the show. Well, that concludes this episode of the Brush and Soap and Blade Podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as I enjoyed making it. If you have some suggestions or would like a topic covered, drop me an email at BrushnSoapnBlade@gmail.com or give me a call at 864-372-6234 or contact us on Twitter at BrushnBlade. You can also visit us at our blog, BrushnSoapnBlade.wordpress.com. As always, we're available on iTunes and Stitcher.